joining us online. And what a kind of a bizarre week. Maybe you're in your house, maybe you're at Kroger watching this right now, trying to find the last shrapnel of toilet paper or paper towel. But we're so glad that you're with us. One of my favorite stories in the entire New Testament is the story in Mark chapter 4, near the end of Mark chapter 4, where the disciples are doing what they normally do, and they're on a boat, but then a storm comes up, and Jesus is doing what he does a lot, and he's sleeping in the midst of a storm, and the storm just kind of goes crazy, and the disciples are flipping out, and they don't know what's going to happen, and so they waken Jesus, and he calms the storm, and here they were panicking to death about the storm, and then they saw Jesus, and their mouths dropped, and they were in fear, and they were in awe of someone who could calm the storms. In many ways, the last week to 2 weeks throughout our world has been this storm. And if you're anything like me, you have a PhD in worry and anxiety. And the beauty of following Jesus is we meet one who is bigger than any of our worries, bigger than any of our anxieties, bigger than any of our fears. And so what we're going to do right now is fix our eyes upon Jesus. The book of Hebrews says that he's the author and the perfecter of our faith. And so we're going to focus on Jesus. We're going to sing to him because he can do and he can calm any storm that we're facing. So let's just invite him to be with us as we worship him this morning. Jesus, we come before you as a community that is both gathered and scattered this morning, and we celebrate that you are living, that you are all-knowing, that you are all good, and that you are in all control. And we, this morning, as a church community, we fix our eyes upon you, Jesus. We don't have all the answers. We don't know everything that we'd like to know. Maybe if there's anxiety in our heart and our soul this morning, we want to surrender that to you. We want to fix our eyes on the one who can bring the calm to the storm that we may be facing. So we just invite you into this time as we sing to you, as we celebrate you, that you are living, that you are good, and that you meet us right where we're at. We welcome you this morning in Jesus' name. Amen. I'm going to invite you to stand wherever you are or stay seated wherever you are, and we're just going to worship Jesus. So whatever's comfortable to you, let's fix our eyes upon him.
Let's sing this. He's our waymaker. And you are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness, my God, that is who you are. And you are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness, my God, that is who you are. And you are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness, my God, that is who you are. And you are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness, my God, that is who you are, and 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 that is who you are. And even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop, you never stop working. You never stop, you never stop working. And even when I don't see it, you're working. And even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop, you never stop working. You never stop, you never stop working. And even when I don't see it, Oh, yes, I will. And I choose to praise. I'll glorify the name of our name. Oh, that nothing can stand against, and I choose to praise. Oh, I'll glorify the name of our name. That nothing can stand against, and I choose to praise. I'll glorify the name of our name. That nothing can stand against. Oh, yes, I will lift you high in my lungs. Bless your name. Yes, I will sing for joy when my heart is heavy in all my days. Oh, yes, I will. Oh, my days. Oh, yes, I will. And even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop working. You never stop working. Even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop working. You never stop working. And even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop working. You never stop. You always make miracle work, promise keep, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. You always make miracle work, promise keep, light in the darkness. Oh, and that is who you are. That is who you are. And that is who you are. And that is who you are. And that is who you are. That is who you are.
Jesus, we just not only sing about who you are, but we remind ourselves, God, that you are good, and that you are faithful, and that you are sovereign, and that you are always working. And so today we just breathe in that truth, and we just proclaim that truth, God. And thank you that you are good and that you are faithful. And we lift our praises to you, not because we have to, God, but we get to worship you. And so thank you for being here. Thank you for the breath that you give us, that we get to give praise back to you. There's no one like you. Thank you for changing us. Thank you for loving us. And it's to you only that we sing these songs. We pray this in the mighty, matchless, sovereign name of Jesus. And everybody said, amen, amen. You can just clap. Can you guys give a little clap for Jesus? Come on now. I love it. I love it. You guys can be seated for a little bit. If you're at home, you're probably already seated. So before we dive into the word today, I want to introduce you guys to a friend of mine. And some of you have met her, some of you have not. Would you guys do me a favor and welcome Miss Ashley Whiten? Come on up front, Ashley. Come sit right here. Come on, some of you can do better than that. That's like a golf clap. That's like nothing. Here you go, Ashley. I got your mic over here. For those of you who don't know, Ashley is, we allowed to have favorite people. Our pastors allowed to have favorite people. Can I say that? No? You guys give me feedback, by the way. If you're this close to me, I want to hear from you, okay? Even those of you behind me. But Ashley's one of my favorite people in the world. She is incredible. She's one of the bravest people I know. And we've known her, my wife and I, for a really, really long time. And a really, really long time. And but she's here today. And she came all the way from Haiti to see us. And so does that affect your clap? Will you guys clap a little bit more? No, she literally, I'm not exact. She literally came all the way from Haiti to see us. But we didn't know coronavirus was going to hit. The plan was she was going to come and we were going to do something during our normal service time. And we booked the flights and everything. And then 3 days ago, we're like, oh, well, things are changing. And all that to say, the reason she came all the way from Haiti to see us is not just because she likes us, even though I think she likes us. The reason she came all the way from Haiti to see us and to be at church on Sunday is because Ashley is actually going to be joining our staff team. Is that exciting to anybody? Yeah. And so, for those of you who don't know, she'll talk about it in a little bit. Ashley has been in Haiti, missionary in Haiti for a really long time, and it's about time. We've been talking for a really long time, and finally we're excited for Ashley to join the team. And so over the next weeks and months, you guys are going to be hearing more of what that means, and it's going to be amazing to have someone that's on our team that's serving a different country, and just amazing opportunities for us. And so, but we just wanted you guys to meet her and know that she's going to be on our team, and we're going to film her story and all that. But all of that to say, Ashley, before you tell us just briefly about the work that you do, I think it's crazy that you left a really crazy situation to come into another one. So why don't you tell us a little about what's been happening in Haiti over the last month or so?
Well, it's interesting because we don't have any confirmed cases of coronavirus. So it's interesting
Haiti?
to
Yeah.
leave a relatively calm situation and then flying to Cleveland and immediately just very different. So it's interesting.
So Cleveland was more chaotic than Haiti is what you're
yeah,
telling
like,
us.
Just
That's
people
amazing.
were starting to get worried, and I think this is a really good picture of what my life has been like this whole year. You guys being on lockdown. Another missionary in Haiti was like, it's very interesting to be in Haiti and see the U.S. freaking out and getting on lockdown. And, you see the grocery stores and there's no food. And so that's been a lot of what this year has been. Not for the coronavirus, but because we've had political unrest. And so this year has, every year has its challenges, but so this is this year's challenge. So a lot of political unrest, which caused riotings. We closed down schools. We closed down the grocery store. You checked every day to see if it would be open. You stocked up on what you could stock up on. Very similar to what you guys are dealing with right now. A lot of...
Except not first world problems, except like real, actual, like...
But still, you're still scared. You still don't know exactly what to trust. You're looking for updates. You're trying to figure out who has the right information. And so there's just been a lot of insecurity overall. And we've had a lot of riots. And recently that kind of changed. The people who are against the current president kind of calmed down and said, let's go back to school. And so the riots stopped. But people are still frustrated. They're still... living in extreme poverty even more than before, and that's kind of what the desperation led to the riots in the first place. And so crime has really increased in the last couple of months. So we've just had a lot of robberies and a lot of kidnappings, and so there's, that fear too of...
Because you kind of stick out in Haiti a little bit.
I stick out a little bit,
yeah.
And I've been there for a long time, and so it makes me a target. It makes my child a target. Sometimes they'll kidnap your kids so that they can get money from you. Anyone who has any connection with me is a target. And there was a brief time, I'm pretty level-headed and okay with it. Just there was the police were protesting.
Just to say, when Ashley is here, like everybody else is here.
Right.
Like she'll text random stuff like, oh, this happened. I'm like, what? She's like, yeah. So level-headed for you is like a whole different degree that most of us cannot comprehend. But go ahead.
And so there was a couple days that the police were protesting, and I was like, oh man, we're really in trouble. The police are fighting each other, and then who's gonna help us? So it's been interesting, but I just think in general it's just really interesting to see the parallels, and I feel like now people can kind of relate to that and what we've been kind of going through. So
yeah, that's awesome. So why don't you tell us just a little about the work that you actually do in there? I know there's a lot, and it's a lot to ask you to summarize that in a few minutes, but just give us a little kind of glimpse of what you've been a part of.
I partner with a local children's home. we don't say orphanage anymore. We call it a children's home. So the children's home, we partner with 2 Haitian women, Christian women, who started it 25 years ago. They're having their 25th anniversary this year. And so I've been a big part of the kids' lives for 10 years. I've lived in Haiti for almost 8. And so I work a lot with them. I help facilitate any kind of medical issues or mental health issues they have. I get them to the doctor's visits. I find out the information, make sure they're getting those needs taken care of as much as possible. And then I also started an American Christian school in Lakai, and we have 57 students. And
Okay, like you legit start. This isn't like I work. No, like she like legit started a school in Haiti with 50-something kids. Thank you, Erin.
Yeah.
And somebody is like excited. That's amazing. Can we just give a hand for that? That's incredible. I started a Facebook group today. She started a school for 50-something kids in Haiti.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
yeah, so we grew from 18. Now we have 57. And there's a waiting list, and but it's great. And we have we're able to have students with special needs go to our school. And in Haiti, there's not really a place for you if you don't learn at the same rate as everyone else. I mean, I'm not even talking about severe special needs. This is just like learning disabilities, ADHD. There's no place for them in the typical school. And so we have a lot of kids that can get an education that wouldn't otherwise be able to get an education. So, and I guess that's pretty much what I do.
And tell us about the little guy a little bit.
Oh, and
maybe?
I have a son. I have known him since he was 7 months when he was abandoned at a local hospital. Met him through social services, I guess. His name is Gregory. He's 6 right now, 6 and a half, so he's almost 7. And yeah, he's doing really well. He speaks English about 90% of the time.
That's amazing. Yeah.
Likes to watch Peppa Pig.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I'm just regular
Yeah.
6-year-old.
So you're in the
I'd say.
process of adopting him, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. So I have legal guardianship right now, and I'm working towards adoption, but I need to be 35 before they will let me turn in my paperwork.
Yeah.
So.
You guys see why she's one of my favorite people in the world? You guys kind of, it's incredible. And again, like I said, over the next several, we actually have a couple of staff things the next couple of days to kind of come up with some plans of what's going to look like with our church. And so, so why don't you tell us, are you excited about this? Tell us from I know we're super excited, but it's about time. So,
Yeah.
so what are you excited about kind of being a part of the team, the church, and all that?
Yeah, I'm just excited to be a part of a community again and have that, just a church that I'm close to. Yes, thank you. Be a part of just be a part of a community, have a church home, have people behind me that I can ask to pray for me or just celebrate the things that God's doing. And I feel like I've been missing that for many years. So it's just nice to be able to be a part of something like that again. And I've known Sam and Ashley for so long, and they had a huge part in me. You know, he says I'm his favorite person. Like they didn't have a huge part, and they had a huge part in how I'm living today and how I made my choices. And so it's just really neat to get to come back, full circle and partner with them again. And and just maybe just to dream big and see where God can take this.
Yeah, and maybe we can come visit you and bring people and help you
Yeah.
and all that fun stuff. Yeah.
Yes, when things settle down, that would be great.
That's awesome. So, well, thank you, Ashley. Can we give Ashley a hand again? Thanks for hanging out with us. You're great. Thank you. Don't use the mic. I'm just giving it to you because you're closest to me. So, anybody bring their Bible with them? I don't know if we told you guys to bring your Bibles or your phone. You can pretend. Everyone's reaching like, I don't know if I have one. But I just want to read from us. Just if you have your Bible at home, you can check it out. 2 Chronicles. Anybody been reading Chronicles lately? Anybody? No, someone said. It's actually a pretty decent book. Quick story before we dive in. And speaking of Haiti, I've shared this before. Some of you guys have heard me say this before. But by far, the most significant worship experience I've ever been a part of happened in Haiti. And I've told this story again many times before, but 10 years ago, I believe it was, about 10 years ago, there was an earthquake in Haiti. And about 3 months after that, I got to go in and, because we were trying to adopt our oldest daughter, baby, from Haiti then, and had to go in through the DR and kind of sneak in. And I'll never forget, I was there in Haiti on the 3rd-month anniversary of the earthquake, which I thought was weird at first, that they were celebrating like the 3rd month of an earthquake. But everything shut down. We're driving through Port-au-Prince, and there was nothing there. And it's because everyone was going to church, and all the churches gathered together. And I just remember standing there in the middle of this worship service, just with my jaw on the ground. Like, literally, I had never ever in my life, and I grew up in some pretty crazy charismatic environments. I had never seen worship like that before, right? I had never seen people so excited and so passionate to worship Jesus, celebrating the 3rd-month anniversary of the earthquake and God saving their lives. And I'm not exaggerating. I just remember standing there, and this is like close. Like, we're under a tent. We can't go in the building because there's still aftershocks, and the ground is still shaking, and people are sweating profusely, not just because it's in Haiti and it was 150 degrees or whatever, but because we're just jam-packed in this place, and they were worshiping God. And I just kept thinking to myself, I picture it 10 years ago, standing there thinking to myself, this doesn't make any sense, right? It does not make any sense that the most significant, passionate worship I've ever been a part of is happening in a 3rd world country under a tent after it just experienced one of the worst natural disasters in the history of the world. It made no sense that they would be worshiping. I just remember thinking to myself, this is crazy, but they did, and they worshiped. And what I had to realize, or what it took me a while to realize later, is that the reason that the Haitians worshiped the way they did is because they knew something that either most of us forget or something that we don't know. They knew that worship is a gift that God gives us, and that gift has the power to lift our souls when everything around us is falling apart. Right? I'm going to say that again. Worship is a gift that God gives us, and with that gift, it comes the power to lift our souls when everything around us is falling apart. I don't know about you guys, but I used to always think that people who worshiped in the midst of adversity had great faith. Right? You ever seen people like that, and you're like, how can you worship? Like, dude, you just went through the worst thing a human could ever go through, and you're worshiping. You must have great faith. But what if it's not that? Right? What if people don't worship because they have great faith? What if the reason people have great faith is because they choose to worship in the midst of adversity? Right? What if it's the other way around? What if the faith that most of us are looking for doesn't come before we worship, but it comes in response to our worship? And that's just really, I can't set it up any better than that for Second Chronicles chapter 20. We're going to start in verse 13. Just to give you a little bit of a context for this narrative. I love this narrative. My mom will tell us this growing up all the time, and I'll never forget it because the name of the king I thought was so funny as a kid was Jehoshaphat. Everybody say Jehoshaphat. Jehoshaphat. That's a great name. Should we put that in our name? This? No, you're not a fan? Okay. It just came to me now. She's like, no, I reject that name. So Jehoshaphat was the king, right? And quick context, 3 nations decided that they were going to come against the nation of Israel. They're just coming. They're going to bring war together. They're bounded together. It was a vast army. And the writer doesn't really give us a ton of insight into why they wanted to take out the nation of Israel. But what the writer does tell us is how King Jehoshaphat responded when he knew that there was this vast army that was coming against him. Listen to what it says in verse 13. It says, all the men of Judah with their wives and their children, and their little ones, so pretty much like everybody, okay? All the teenagers that would rather be at the mall, and all the kids that were missing their nap time. It didn't matter. Everybody showed up, and they stood there before the Lord. Verse 14, check it out. It says, then the Spirit of the Lord, and there are some like amazing names in here, so if you see anyone that you like, babe, just nod, or just write it down, and we can talk about it later. Right? The Spirit of love came on Jahaziel, son of Zechariah. No? Okay. The son of Benaniah, the son of Jael, the son of Mathaniah, a Levite and a descendant of Asaph, as he stood in the assembly. That's a lot of introduction for one guy, but point is, God's Spirit came upon him, right? And then verse 15 says this, and so he said, listen, King Jehoshaphat, and all who live in Judah and Jerusalem, this is what the Lord says. Do not be afraid or discouraged because of this vast army. For the battle is not yours, but God's. Verse 16. Tomorrow, he says, I want you to march down against them. Then they will be climbing up by the pass of Ziz, and you will find them at the end of the gorge in the desert of Jeruel. Verse 17. You will not have to fight this battle. If you have a pen, underline it, highlight that. We're going to come back to that in a little bit. Take up your positions, stand firm, and see the deliverance of the Lord. See the deliverance the Lord will give you, Judah and Jerusalem. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged. Go out to face them tomorrow, and the Lord will be with you. Is it just me, or does anybody else feel like there's a lot of mixed messages in this passage? Anybody notice that? Like there's a lot of messages that don't seem to complement each other. Let me show you what I'm talking about in case you didn't catch it, because you guys are looking at me like, I don't know what you're talking about. You ready for this? He says, the battle is not yours but God's. And then verse 16, it says, go march down against them. And then later it says, you will not have to fight this battle. And they're like, whoo, thank God, because we're thinking we're about to get our butts whooped right now. But then he says, take up your positions, stand firm, and see the deliverance that the Lord will give you. And then it says later in the end of verse 17, I want you to go out and face them tomorrow, and the Lord will be with you. So which one is it? Right? God said, hey, the battle's mine, but you're not going to have to fight. You're going to have to kind of show up at the battle. Right? You're not going to have to fight this battle, but tomorrow I want you to march up and I want you to draw battle lines. It's almost like God is sending mixed messages in here, and I think part of what the writer is trying to show us in here is that there is a tension. Right? And if you look at this passage, you can almost feel the tension in the air. And I obviously, again, I wasn't there like I always say, but can you imagine what it's like standing there, knowing there's a vast army coming against you, knowing that you have no shot at defeating or fighting this army, and then all of a sudden some guy walks up and is like, hey, I've heard from God. Anybody want to hear what I want to say? And we're like, oh, please tell us what God has to say. And God says, hey, the battle is not yours but mine. And you're like, whoo, thank goodness, because we didn't have a shot. And then God tells them in that moment, actually, I want you to go march forward. And you can almost feel in this narrative the tension between God's word and what they see. Right? You can almost feel these guys standing there thinking to themselves, man, which one is it? Am I going to believe what I just heard God say, or am I going to believe what I see coming against me? Am I going to respond to the threat in front of me? Anybody here ever been there? You ever feel that tension between what God tells you, Aaron, and what you see and feel in the natural? Right? He said every day, my man, right? I mean, where you're thinking to yourself, on the one hand, I know what God says. I know what the word of God says. But then you're looking at reality and you're saying, man, I see something else in front of me. So which one is it? I love that Jehoshaphat tells them in here. He says, do not be afraid. It's not a trick question, but anybody have any idea? Why would he tell them not to be afraid? Anybody? Because they were afraid, right? He was afraid and they were afraid. Right? Isn't that crazy? And we're going to see this over and over again. He kept telling them, hey, I don't want you to be afraid. Do not be afraid. And I have a feeling the reason he kept saying that is because he knew that they were afraid. And so he had to reassure them not to be afraid. And what I love about this narrative is that Jehoshaphat doesn't just tell them not to be afraid. I love that he tells them not to be afraid, but then he points them to something else. I had a conversation with Jared. I was driving back yesterday, and I just called him, and I was just processing, just the coronavirus, just a lot of crazy things happening. I was coming to the office. I knew I had to film a video that some of you guys saw online. Anybody? Well, who didn't watch the video? So I didn't know. Who just ignored my video? You all watched it. You guys are great. That's why you're invited here. You didn't watch my video? Okay. All right. Can you go sit back there now, Jim? Can you switch seats with them? You can sit. But I was going to make this video. And I called my friend Jared, and I just kept telling Jared, I'm like, I don't want to do this video, to be honest with you. I'm like, I don't want to do it because I feel like there's 100 videos out there. Every pastor I follow on social media has got their face on a camera saying something. So I'm like, nobody needs to hear from me per se. I don't want to add to the noise, but I know I have to say something. But I told him the other reason that I don't want to do this video is because I don't really know what to say. Right? I feel like I don't want to say a lot, and I've seen a lot of incredible videos from pastors just giving a word to their community. But I said, what I don't want to do is get in front of the camera and say, do not be afraid. Right? I don't want to say that. And I've heard a lot of people say, don't be afraid. There's nothing to be afraid of. There's nothing to be afraid of. I told Jared on the phone, I'm like, I feel like telling people who are afraid not to be afraid is like telling someone who's drowning not to drown. Right? Can you imagine someone's drowning, like, hey, don't drown. Okay, just don't drown. That would be a great idea right now if you just don't drown. right? And I'm thinking, no, no, no. I need you to throw me a life preserver. I need you to jump in and help me. Don't just tell me not to be afraid. And I love this passage because Jehoshaphat comes in and he doesn't just say, hey, y'all, don't be afraid. God's got this. No, he says don't be afraid, but then he points them to something else. Listen to what happens in verse 18. It says, then Jehoshaphat bowed down with his face to the ground. Okay, just imagine this. The entire nation is gathered together, right? They're all standing there. Somebody speaks from God. God says to them, do not be afraid. They're all freaking out. Jehoshaphat's like, you shouldn't be afraid. And they're all, it's like, okay, man, I'm going to show you what to do next. And Jehoshaphat, in that moment, bows his face to the ground. And when he did that, all the people of Judah and Jerusalem fell down in worship. Okay, we're not talking like 2, 10, 15, 100, 1,000 people. The entire nation. Remember he said earlier, all the men, their wives, their children, the little one, every single person fell down in worship before the Lord. I love verse 19. It says, then some Levites from the Kohathites, is that how you say that? Ryan, do you know? No? Kohathites. Okay, we'll just go with what I said. Good enough. And then they stood up and they praised the Lord, the God of Israel, with a loud, loud voice. You know what this is? I was thinking about this. I'm like, this is like that crazy part of the student section at every game. Anybody know what I'm talking about? Like, you know how you have like all the fans, the normal fans, and then you have like the student section? And then you have like the 6 people with their shirts off, even though it's like -5 degrees. Like I just remember when I was a student, I would go to I had a fro back then, so it was a long time ago. And like I would paint my hair and I would do all the rocket stuff. But I drew the line at like, dude, if it's less than 70 degrees out, I am not ever taking my shirt off. But you had guys, it would be snowing and they would have their shirt off, painted, go Rockets. And I'm like, I do not like football as much. I don't like anything in life as much as you guys love the Rockets right now. That's what these guys are. Everybody's worship, and then there's this little tribe that comes, and they're like, hey, we're going to be those crazy guys. We're going to worship, and we're going to worship God in a really, really loud voice. And what's interesting about this passage, don't miss this, is that these guys are not worshiping God because they're convinced that God is in control, right? Because he just told us that they're afraid. No, the reason they're worshiping God is because they want to remind themselves that God is in control when they don't feel it or when they don't see it. Listen to what happens in the rest of the story in verse 20. It says, early in the next morning, they left for the desert of Tekoa. And as they step out, Jehoshaphat stood up and he said, listen to me, Judah and people of Jerusalem. Have faith in the Lord your God, and you will be upheld. Again, why is he telling them to have faith? Because they don't have faith and because they're afraid. He says, have faith in him and you will be upheld. Have faith in his prophets and you will be successful. Verse 21. It says, after consulting the people, Jehoshaphat appointed men to sing to the Lord and to praise God for the splendor of his holiness as they went out at the head of the army, saying, give thanks to the Lord, for his love endures forever. So get this. This is hilarious. They're going to war, right? The people are scared. Jehoshaphat's trying to pep talk him. He's running down the sidelines. Don't be afraid. Have faith. Don't be afraid. They're worshiping God. They're not sure what to do. And what does Jehoshaphat do? What does the king of Israel do? He comes up with the brilliant idea to put a band together. Okay, just imagine if you were there, right? They're scared. They're like, the army is getting closer. What are we going to do? And he's like, we're going to put a band together. Okay, can we get Weston in here? Weston, where you at? And Weston shows up with his guitar. He's like, we need someone to play keys. We need a djembe player. Can we get some trumpets? Okay, anybody here got any musical talent? He's looking for volunteers. Jehoshaphat puts a band together, but wait, it gets better than that. Not only does he put a band together, but the writer tells us that he asked the worship team, the worshipers, to lead the army. Okay, come on now. That's hilarious. Just picture that for a second. Right? If I'm the king, I'm thinking like, can we get Jack Bauer to lead the army? Can we get King Leonidas to lead the army? Right? You guys remember that guy from 300, Leonidas? If you haven't seen the movie, he was just this crazy Spartan warrior that had abs in places you didn't think you could have abs. I was like, I didn't even think that was possible. But that's the kind of guy that I'm looking for to lead the army. But this is just incredible because that's not what he does. Right? Jehoshaphat's like, hey, we're going to get the worshipers to be in front of the army. What Jehoshaphat is doing here is what we do when we don't know what to do. When we don't know what to do, we lead with worship. So Jehoshaphat's like, I have no idea what's going to happen. We're scared. We're discouraged. We've heard from God. There's this tension. We're not sure how it's going to work. So I'm going to do the only thing I know to do when I don't know what to do. I'm going to worship God. And what we're about to see in a little bit is that when we do the only thing we know to do, when we don't know what to do, guess what happens? God does the only thing that he can do. Watch the story unfold, verse 22. It says, as they began to sing and praise God, right? They sang, which is just crazy. I don't know what song they sang, but that's just hilarious to picture people scared, discouraged, but like, okay, we're going to sing because this just seems like really bad strategy, Jehoshaphat, but we're going to follow you and we're going to sing. And it says, as they began to sing, the Lord set ambushes against the men of Ammon and Moab and Mount Seir who were invading Judah, and they were defeated. The Ammonites and the Moabites rose up against the men from Mount Seir to destroy them and annihilate them. After they finished slaughtering the men from Seir, they helped to destroy one another. When the men of Judah came to the place that overlooks the desert and they looked towards the vast army, listen to what happens. They only saw dead bodies laying on the ground. No one had escaped. I'm going to read 22 to you again. As they began to sing and praise, it says, the Lord set ambushes against them. I love the way the Message paraphrase put it. It says, as soon as they started singing. So think about this. This nation's working. Jehoshaphat put the band in front. And the writer says, the moment the nation of Judah started to sing, God started working, and God set an ambush against the enemy. And I just wish, I hope they have like video recordings in heaven of all this stuff, because I would love to watch that, because there's 3 kings coming against Judah, and 2 of them are like, hey, you know what? And again, this is what I imagine the conversation's like. They're like, hey, there's 3 of us going to take down these guys, and the one guy looked at the one guy, hey, we should take that guy out, dude. That we don't need him. We can beat these guys without him, so let's take him out so there's less stuff for us to share. And it says the 2 kings came together and took out the one guy, and after they destroyed him, they looked at each other like, hey, I don't need you. I can do this without you. And they turned on each other, and they destroyed each other. And the writer said not one of them escaped. As soon as they started worshiping, God started to work. Now, to be clear, I don't think that God was in heaven waiting for their worship, right? I was reading this earlier today, and I kept picturing that scene in Braveheart, right? Remember when he's like, hold? Anybody remember that? He's like, hold, right? That's what I picture. It's just God is in heaven, and God's like, hold, you know. And as soon as they started singing, it's like God just unleashed something, and all of a sudden the enemies destroyed each other. And I don't think God did that because God needed their worship to move. I think it happened that way because they needed their worship to be able to see what God was going to do. The moral of the story, if you will, is that I believe that all through our lives as a church, as individuals, as families, as a culture, as a country, just like we are right now, we're going to find ourselves in the middle, if you will, of a battle. Right? We're going to find ourselves in circumstances and situations that we don't know what to do. If you watch that video I posted online, I literally started by saying, I don't know. And it's probably not what people want to hear right now, but I don't know what to do. And in those moments, I think one of the things that we can draw from this story is that God is saying, Sammy, when you don't know what to do, I have given you a gift called worship. And worship has the power to lift your soul when everything around you is falling apart. Worship has the power to lift our souls when we don't know what to do and everything around us is falling apart. I love the way Pastor Louis Giglio put it. He says, circumstances conceal God's face, but worship reveals the face of God. Let me say that again. Circumstances conceal God's face, but worship reveals God's face. The reason Jehoshaphat worshiped in here, and the reason we're going to worship in a little bit, and the reason we worship is not because we have to, right? The reason we worship is not only because it's tradition to worship. No, the reason we worship is because we want to see God's face. The reason we worship is because worship is our way of lifting our eyes. Worship is our way of saying, God, we might not see it right now, but we trust and we believe that you are working in this moment. I think I said this a year or so ago when we had Dive in this room, and I'll say it again because I don't know if somebody here needs to hear it. But one of the things I love the most about worship is that you don't have to believe it completely and you don't have to feel it to do it. Amen? Anybody know what I'm talking about? Right? I always thought every time I came into the house of God, like, all right, man, Lord, I need you to do something in my heart. I need you to stay on my heart so I can feel it, so I can sing, so I can raise my voice. And I've looked through Scripture, and I don't see that anywhere. Right? Nowhere in Scripture do you see that you got to get the thing inside of you and you got to feel it to be able to sing it. No. If anything, you see the opposite. If anything, God commands us. He says, hey, lift your voice, lift your hands. When you don't feel it, when you don't see it, worship is a gift that God has given you to lean in. And what's incredible about worship is that when we sing it, and when we raise our voice and when we raise our hands, even when we don't feel like it, even when our hearts aren't necessarily connected, if we do that, eventually we start to believe the things that we may not have believed before we started to worship. Eventually we start to see the things that we may not have seen and felt before we start to worship. Worship is this tremendous gift that God has given us. And he's saying, you don't have to feel it. You don't have to fully believe it. I wasn't there, but I have a feeling that the entire nation wasn't convinced that God's love endures forever. When they saw the army coming and they were singing, they weren't singing like, oh, Lord, we just trust that you have a plan because we can see your plan. No, they were just singing because they were hoping to remind themselves of what's true. And I don't know if you caught it or not, but one of my favorite things about this story is that even though God started working, the moment they started singing, they didn't see the work that God was doing. So it's not like they started singing, God started working. They're like, look, our singing's working, so come on, guys, sing louder, because they're destroying each other. They didn't see it. They're just singing and marching. God is working. They're singing. God's working. They don't see that God's working, but they keep singing. And the more they sing, the more God's working. The more they worship, the more God's working. And all of a sudden, when they got to the point when they could see the work, it was over. God had already done everything that needed to be done. I say all that to say, I wonder if worship is the gift that God is reminding us to grab a hold of in the midst of what our country, our community, and our church is going through right now. Yes, please wash your hands a lot. We should lead the way in that. We should, with the world around us and the culture around us, wash our hands. But I wonder if God is saying, hey, as you wash your hands, will you lead in lifting your hands? I wonder if we can do a little more than just washing our hands. If we say, hey, we're also going to lift our hands in worship because we know that worship matters. Because when we don't know what else to do, we get to worship Jesus. I wonder what would happen if we led the conversation that we're in as the Church of Jesus Christ with our songs. Love the memes. I've seen a lot of them today that made me laugh. Love the articles. Everyone seems to be writing one. Everyone's got a blog. Everyone's got a post. Everyone's got a pie chart. Everyone's got a graph of what's happening with the coronavirus. And I'm not against any of that. I think it's okay and it's good for us to be informed. I think it's good for us to learn. I think it's good for us to pass good information to one another. But I'm just wondering today if before we do all of that, we lead with worship. What if the first thing that we do is the first thing that the nation did in 2 Chronicles, that we are going to lead with worship? That before I share my article with you, I'm going to share a song with you. Right? Before I share my meme with you, I'm going to let you know the song that I am singing in my heart right now. Worship is always the appropriate response for us. I don't know how this stuff's going to play out. I don't know if we're going to wake up 2 days from now and go, well, that was a vast overreaction. Back to our regular scheduled programming. I don't know if we're going to wake up 2 weeks from now and go, wow, I cannot believe this. The world has stopped in a way that we've never seen before. I have no idea what the future holds or how all of this is going to play out. But what I know, though, is that God has given those of us who are followers of Jesus Christ a gift. He's saying, I've given you a gift called worship. And worship, I'll say it again, has the power to lift your soul when everything around you is falling apart. And what I love about that story we read earlier before service in Acts chapter 16 is that when we worship, God not only works on our behalf, but God works in the lives of those who are around us. Paul and Silas were in prison, and they started singing when it made no sense. I doubt Paul and Silas felt like it. I don't think they were sitting in chains, bloodied up, thinking to themselves, you know what will feel good right now is worship. No. They just lifted their voices to God because that's all they knew to do. And the writer tells us that as they worshiped God and lifted their hands and their voices to Him, their chains broke and the chains of everybody around them broke. And I don't know, again, what God's going to do or how all this is going to play out. But how amazing would it be if the story at the end of this Corona journey is that, man, the church lifted their voice and they lifted their hands, and God not only broke our chains, but God broke all the chains around us, and we saw a victory in which God did what only God can do. Worship is a gift that lifts our spirit when everything is falling apart. Jesus, I just thank you so much for the gift of worship. Thank you for the invitation that you give us to sing, to lift our voices, to lift our hands to you, to remind ourselves, God, of who you are, of how good you are, God, to remind ourselves of what's true. We thank you that you are faithful even when we're not. God, will you forgive us for making life about what it's not? Will you remind us that we are first people of worship? And so, God, we're going to sing to you, and we're going to sing to you not because we have to, but we get to. What an honor. Because you command us to, because you call us to. And because when we sing to you, mountains move, chains are broken, even when we don't see it. Even if we don't see it right now, God, we are going to believe that you are the same in 2 Chronicles 20 as you are today. And you did the work then, and you can do it now. And so we just pray today, and we sing not only on behalf of ourselves, we sing on behalf of our community, everybody who's watching right now. We sing on behalf of this city. We sing on behalf of this nation. We lead this conversation with worship, God, and we raise our voices to you, believing, God, that you can do what only you can do. Will you guys stand and worship with us? If you're watching at home, I know it's a little bit awkward, but you can do it. Stand. Will you lift your voice? Will you lift your hands, not just for yourself, on behalf of our city, on behalf of our community, on behalf of our country? What this country reads right now is worship, it's truth, it's who Jesus is. When we don't know what else to do, what do, church? We worship and lift our voice to Jesus. Let's worship Jesus and remind ourselves of who He is.
Don't let your heart be troubled. you're good. Oh, let's sing this in faith. And you're never gonna let me down. You're never gonna let me down. And you're never gonna let me down. You're never gonna let me down. And you're never gonna let me down. You're never gonna let me down. And swing wide, oh you heaven, let the praise go up as the walls come down. All creation, everything with breath, repeat the sound. All these children, clean hands, pure hearts, good grace, good God. His name is Jesus. Sing that one more time. Swing wide, oh you heavens, let the praise go up as the walls come down. All creation, everything with breath, repeat the sound. All these children, clean hands, pure hearts, good grace, good God. His name is Jesus. Don't let your heart, and don't let your heart be troubled. And hold your head up high, don't fear no evil. Fix your eyes on this one truth. God is madly in love with you. So take courage, hold on, be strong. Remember where our help comes from. Oh, oh,
Amen. Amen. Sammy said this morning, let us lead with worship. This weekend, when we found out we were going to have 3 weeks of spring break and 4 kids in the house, we decided to put our kids to work, and we put on worship music. And a song that impacted us years ago, Your Love Never Fails, came on. It was just this reminder that God's love never fails, that as we press in and worship into His love, we can become that love for people who desperately need it. I want to thank you so much for joining us this morning. It's been awesome. Let us be those kind of people. Let's be the people who fix our eyes on Jesus, the author and perfecter of our faith. Let's worship Him. When everybody else is panicking, let's go before the Father and sing about a Savior, a rescuer, a King, the God who's in charge of the entire cosmos. How amazing is that? A couple things that just want to remind you, if you've not downloaded our app, that's where we keep things up to date. You can also go to somacity.org/updates, and we'll keep you informed on upcoming gatherings. Obviously, any details on that we will put on there. We'll put on the app. Also, we have a Facebook group, as Sammy mentioned about this. So follow us on Facebook. Thank you so much for being with us. I'm going to pray for us, and then you can go about your day. Father, thank you for our time together as a community. Thank you, God, that there's even technology that would allow us to gather like this and to celebrate you. God, thank you that you are a God that is worthy of celebrating. That we want to become people in this moment that turn to you. And that come to you and taste and see, God, that you are good. That you are all-knowing, you are all-powerful, you're all-loving, and God, you come and you walk among a world that's at times a mess, like a world that we're in right now. And God, in the midst of that, you do your best work. You remind us of of the brevity of life. You remind us of the gift of life. You remind us the gift of relationship. So God, may we lean into you. May we hear your voice afresh this week as we go about. We're in our environments and in our neighborhoods. And so just meet us where we're at. Help us to be who you want us to be in this city and beyond, to be salt and light, to be good news of an amazing and loving God. It's in your name we pray this, Jesus. Amen. Amen. Have a great week. God bless.
Hey, I don't know if anyone else was thinking this when we were singing that last song, Clean Hands, Good Grace, Good God. I'm like, this is the anthem for coronavirus if there's ever one. And like, yes, clean hands, literally. Good grace, good God. Thank you. So wash your hands on the way out, please. Hand sanitize. That's so funny. Hey, thank you guys for hanging out with us. Clean hands, good grace, good God. That's our anthem for this whole week. So thanks again for hanging out with us. I've said it like 100 times now. Ryan just said it. Download the app. Hang out with us on Facebook. We're going to update you as we go. We're not sure what the week's going to look like. Well, let's lead with worship this week, right? That's our opportunity that we have. We have a gift, not just for ourselves, but we have a gift for our culture. We get to lead with worship. And so I love you guys. Hopefully I get to see you sooner than expected. But until then, let's keep worshiping Jesus. See you later.